Hi everyone, and welcome to another session of Moneyfy Mantra. As we all know, it's a webinar series where we talk to various industry experts regarding various aspects of personal finance, investments, various products. And I'm Gaurav, your host for today's session. Uh, Before we begin the session, I will just introduce the Moneyfy app for people who have joined for the first time. So Tata Capital Moneyfy is a complete investment app which enables all our customer to plan all their investment, insurance, and financing needs at one single place in a single app. And along with mutual funds, we also have products like corporate fixed deposits, NPS, various insurance products to offer a complete financial solution. Recently, we have also introduced direct equity investment through small case channel, where you can invest into direct equity stocks through the small case route. So please download our app and start your investment journey with Moneyfy from Tata Capital. Now coming to today's topic. So in the last webinar, we talked about long-term wealth creation. And today also, we are going to talk about a very basic but a very important concept of asset allocation. Combining asset allocation for long-term wealth and regular investing can create wonders. And to talk on the same, we have with us Mr. Niranjan Avasthi. He is the head product and marketing at Edelweiss Asset Management, and he has over a decade of experience, mostly on the MF side. Prior to Edelweiss, he was also associated with ICICI and Reliance AMC, and also with ISEC and Sheikh Khan. So Niranjan, a warm welcome to Moneyfy Mantra, and a pleasure to have you on board here.
Thanks, Gaurav. Look forward for this session. Thanks for having me.
So while Niranjan would be talking about the topic, if anyone has any queries, request to put that in the chat window. So कोई भी queries किसी को है तो please chat window में डाल दीजिए. Once the session comes to closure, we'll take all the Q&A. So Niranjan, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Let me just start sharing my screen. Okay, I hope the slides are visible.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Gaurav, and welcome all. Today we're going to discuss very simple 3 ways of rebalancing your portfolio. And broadly, the agenda which we have for the discussion today is what are different asset class available for investments today. And because there are various number of asset class, importance of asset allocation only increases. So we'll also discuss what is asset allocation and why it is important. How do you understand your own risk taking capacity while devising a right asset allocation strategy? What are the perils of not rebalancing your portfolios, and most importantly, at the end, we'll also discuss 3 simple ways to rebalance your portfolio to maintain a stated asset allocation which you had initially thought of. So let's start with what are the investment options today. And as we speak today, you have number of investment options in front of you, be it stock market, which is direct equity, be it mutual funds. Within mutual funds, there are debt mutual funds, equity mutual funds, hybrid mutual funds. Then we all have fixed deposits, gold, real estate. There are new, I can't say asset class, but of course new avenues for investments and trading like cryptos, NFTs and all. So we are all filled with many options today. And with more options, the choice paradox is only increasing day by day. And when we have so many options, a lot of time, as an investor, we keep investing in each of these asset class the way it comes across us. And we really forget how much are we allocating to each of these asset class, and are we in alignment with our risk, goals and all. And that is the reason asset allocation becomes very important. And a lot of us and you would have heard about it or read about it, that 90% of your portfolio returns are because or due to the asset allocation which you do. So I'll give you an example. If today you have 100 rupees and from what let me just sorry, I got disconnected. Let me just again reiterate the point. So what I was talking was around asset allocation. So asset allocation becomes very, very important because there are a number of asset classes available today, and we keep investing in these assets the way they come across us. And we really forget how much we are investing in each of these asset class. So asset allocation is basically an investment strategy that aims to balance between the risk and reward. And the three most important elements to consider whilst figuring a right asset allocation for your portfolio is what are your individual goals, what is your risk tolerance, and what is your investment horizon. Asset allocation is basically used to divide your money in the right proportions among equity, debt, gold, real estate, to maximize your chance of achieving your financial goals while at the same time controlling your risk. Because end of the day, what we all invest for is to achieve our goals, and our goals could be a number of very different goals. One would have a retirement, which is probably one of the longest goal for many youngsters. It starts today and it ends at around 20, 25, 30 years way down the line. One can have a goal which is very, very near term of buying a car and saving some money or investing so that you can buy that dream car or a dream house over the next few years or 10 years. So based on these goals, your risk allocation or your risk tolerance also differs. If you have a goal which is probably very, very long term, so अगर आपका goal 15 या 20 साल के अवधि का है, definitely initially you can take a lot of risk. Your risk appetite is higher while investing for such goals. But अगर आपको 2 या 3 साल का कोई गोल है, अगर आप आपके चिल्ड्रन के पढ़ाई के लिए कुछ पैसे सेव कर रहे हैं जो कि अगले 2-3 साल में आपको लगेंगे, यहाँ पर आपका रिस्क टॉलरेंस काफी कम हो जाता है. सो what is your goal, risk tolerance and investment horizons are the most important elements to consider while you are doing a asset allocation. So how do you understand your risk? As I mentioned, हर गोल के लिए आपका एक जो risk appetite वो अलग होता है. A lot of people do one thing which is extremely wrong, is irrespective when their goal is or what is their investment horizon, they consider their risk appetite basis their age, right? So if I am a young investor, I probably think that my risk appetite is very, very high, and irrespective of the period for which I want to invest, I end up investing all my money in the most riskiest asset class, which is wrong. Because even if you are young, but if your goal happens to be in next 2 to 3 years, because when you are young there are different kinds of goals apart from retirement. Because if you started earning today, maybe 2-3 years down the line you will get married and you will need some money for your marriage. After that you will probably want to buy a house, and maybe a few years down the line you will need some money for a down payment of your house. You might want some money to buy your dream car or a motorcycle or go for a vacation. So all these are very, very long short-term goals. And even if you are young and you believe that your risk appetite is high, it may not be right to invest all your money in equities for these near-term goals, right? For these goals, you need to have a right asset allocation strategy, probably a hybrid fund or a mix of debt and equity, which over a period of time reduces equity and increases allocation to fixed income, that kind of asset allocation strategy would work. So understanding risk is very important. And what is risk? So any deviation from an expected outcome is risk. So if you are saving for say 5 years, and if you start a equity investment for that 5-year goal, imagine in 5th year, if you're still 100% invested in equities, and that 5th year happened to be a year like 2020 when markets fell by 25 or 30%, imagine whatever amount you have achieved to achieve that goal, it would have been down by 20-30%, and probably you may not be able to achieve that goal financially. So any deviation from an expected outcome is a risk, and you need to manage this risk. How do you manage? How can you manage? Is through asset allocation. As you come closer to the goal, it is always prudent to reduce the allocation to equity from your portfolio, or at least for the amount which was allocated to that particular goal, and keep that much amount shifting more towards debt. The second important thing is your risk taking capacity and need could be different. So as the same example holds true here, your need is 5 years investment, but your risk taking capacity is very, very different because you are young and you believe you can take more risk. Inherently, most of us would prefer to be in a low risk and high return investment, but that is actually a fallacy, and there's nothing known as low risk and high return. Risk is, as we saw, is a deviation from the expected outcome risk. When people say that equity has high risk and high return, they are probably telling you only one side of the story. When there is high risk, there is probability of higher return, but also a higher probability of a higher loss. So you need to see both the sides of the coin, and then understand your own risk. So if you believe that equity returns, the risks are higher, but in maybe next 3 or 5 years, equity returns could be around 10-15%, you should be ready that even if I invest for a longer period of time, maybe 3 to 5 years, the returns could be negative 10-15% also. And when the answer for this is, okay, even with this risk, I can stay invested, then probably आप equity में invest कर सकते हो. Similar holds true for not investing in equity also. There are a lot of people who actually miscalculate their risk taking capacity. अगर आज आप एक 10 साल के लिए इन्वेस्ट करते हो इक्विटी में, लॉन्ग टर्म में डेफिनेटली रिस्क कम हो जाता है. एंड जैसे वी जस्ट डिस्कस्ड दैट in the longer run, your volatility in equity reduces, and I'm sure in various sessions with this webinars you would have seen those data. तो ऐसे जगह पर काफी लोग still invest in fixed income or fixed deposit. This is also wrong, and this is also against the asset allocation. अगर आप लंबे समय के लिए इन्वेस्ट करते हो तो डेफिनेटली आपका रिस्क एपिटाइट जो, even if you at a higher age, even if you are 45 or 50, लेकिन अगर आप लंबे समय के लिए इन्वेस्ट करते हो तो कुछ पैसा आप डेफिनेटली इक्विटी में लगा सकते हो, बिकॉज लॉन्गर पीरियड ऑफ टाइम आपका रिस्क धीरे धीरे कम होते जाता है. So understanding risk correctly is very important. You should not underestimate your risk also, and you should not overestimate your risk appetite as well, which is very, very important to design a right asset allocation strategy. Now coming to portfolio rebalancing, अगर आप एक asset allocation strategy चुनते हैं, where say for example you choose that I want to start with say 60% equity and remaining into fixed income or some other asset class, over a period of time you will have to rebalance the portfolio. So what is rebalancing? So portfolio rebalancing is nothing but more than regular maintenance of your investments. Like you regularly go to a mechanic and get your car serviced, go to a doctor and get a checkup done. Even if nothing is wrong, periodic checkup or a periodic servicing of your vehicle ensures that it runs smoother and is in good condition for a longer period of time. It is similarly very true for your portfolio. A lot of time we invest and forget, and we don't realign the weights between the portfolio assets, and because of that usually what happens is जहाँ पे जिस asset class का return ज़्यादा है उसमें आपका exposure धीरे धीरे automatically बढ़ते जाता है. Say, let me give you an example. If you invested 70 rupees in equity and 30 rupees in debt, and अगर 2 या 3 साल में equity के जो returns है वो काफी ज़्यादा है, लगभग 12-15% returns आ रहे हैं, तो ऑटोमेटिकली आपका जो एलोकेशन इक्विटी में जो 70% था वो ऑटोमेटिकली ड्रिफ्ट होके 3-4 साल में वो 80-85% के आसपास चला जाएगा. सो एट दैट पॉइंट इन टाइम इफ यू डोंट रीबैलेंस योर पोर्टफोलियो, तो इनिशियली आपने जो आपका एसेट एलोकेशन सोचा था उससे आप काफी डिफरेंट हो, एंड दैट इज वेयर योर रिस्क in the portfolio increases, which you need to ensure that you bring it down and take it to a level where your risk is in your comforting level. इसका उल्टा भी सही हो सकता है. अगर मार्केट नीचे गिर रहा है तो आपने जो इक्विटी में एलोकेशन किया था 70%, वो गिर कर 55 या 7% भी आ सकता है. तो ऐसे समय में it is important to shift some of your money from fixed income to equity. And this is where portfolio rebalancing becomes very important, and this is what portfolio rebalancing is. And why one should rebalance, as we just saw, it is only way to stay on track with your target asset allocation. So if you don't, then over a period of time your investments may be overweight on a higher performing asset, and your overall portfolio will become more volatile, and this may expose your investments to higher degree of risk. So if you start with for a 5-year goal, start investing, and you start with 60% equity and 40% debt, and अगर आपने 5 साल इसको हाथ नहीं लगाया और end of the year you will see that 80-85% is in equity and rest is in debt, and if that year again happens to be a volatile year, आपका overall goal achievement का जो probability है it might come down and your goal achievement could be at a risk. Sorry. So when it is most important to rebalance your portfolio and you look at your asset allocation, so it is more important when you are closer to your goal. The same example which we just discussed, you start investing, but as you come closer to your goal, maybe 1 or 2 years closer to your goal, you should definitely check the asset allocation so that you are not found in a achieve that goal. So, and if it is not done, it will, even then it becomes a very tricky situation. The second important junction where you should look at your asset allocation are life situations and changes. So, when suddenly you get some money and you are investing, so most likely what happens is आपके पास अगर 100 रुपए आते हैं आज, in most likely, and it is human behavior to invest that money in the asset class जिसने आपको सबसे ज्यादा रिटर्न दिया है. So अगर उस टाइम पे इक्विटी ने आपको पिछले 2-3 साल में ज्यादा रिटर्न दिया होगा, तो most likely a lot of investors will invest that 100 rupees entirely in equities. So whenever you get a lump sum amount, you should check your asset allocation, and according to that you should invest that money. When you have some medical emergency and all, or you foresee that you will need some money for your medical situation, you should look at your asset allocation. You should keep a lot of money which you might need in your maybe fixed income kind of asset class or FDs and all. When you have a new member in your family, when you get married, all these are very important life situations, and one should look at their asset allocation very, very closely during these situations. So what are the three simple ways to rebalance your portfolio and keep your asset allocation under check? One very, very simple way is set a time frame. Look at maybe January or a month which happens to be your birthday month. Once in a year, you should look at your asset allocation at a 30,000 feet level. How much I am investing in equity, how much in debt, within equity, which asset class I am invested in, whether this is right, whether this is what I wanted initially. If need be, looking at the taxation front and all, you should be able to rebalance this portfolio. So set a time frame जहाँ पे साल में एक बार आपका पोर्टफोलियो देखें और उसको रीबैलेंस करें. दूसरा तरीका है which is also more to do with do with investors who track market closely. Investors आप set कर सकते हैं कि अगर मेरा पोर्टफोलियो 5 या 10% से ऊपर जाता है, then probably I will look at the asset allocation and see अगर कोई changes की जरूरत है. So whenever your target asset allocation changes by a certain percentage, maybe 5% or 10%, because equity returns are higher or it is lower, your asset allocation will change. That is the time आप आपका पोर्टफोलियो लेकर बैठकर उसको देख सकते हैं इसमें क्या चेंजेस की जरूरत है. डेट से इक्विटी शिफ्ट करना है या गोल्ड से पैसा निकालना है, गोल्ड में काफी ज्यादा एलोकेशन हो गया, you can reduce and increase, you can do that. And the third way is basically set a time frame, and at that time frame look whether your asset allocation is drifting. So maybe every December you look at the asset allocation, also check how much it is deviated from the initial asset allocation. If it is just 2, 3, 4%, don't do anything. If it is over 10%, then you may need to act. So these are very simple ways how you can set a disciplined way or set a discipline to check your asset allocation and rebalance it. So broadly, these are how the asset allocation strategies can be set. Most importantly, we all talk about asset allocation, but I have seldom seen a person actually looking at his portfolio on a holistic basis. And one important point, when you look at your portfolio, you should consider your entire portfolio. It should not be only mutual fund, because a lot of people look at just their mutual fund portfolio and see, okay, in mutual fund portfolio, I have this much equity and I have, this much debt. But that's not true, because if you are investing in PPF, PF, or fixed deposit, that is also your portfolio. If you have some investments in gold, maybe gold coins or sovereign gold bonds, that is also your part of your asset allocation. So you should combine all your assets, which you can liquidate if need be, and they actually qualify as investments, and you should consider this entire portfolio and then see how the asset allocation looks, and then try to rebalance it. Most importantly, in a period like today, where in last 2 years equity returns have been more than 100%, और जहाँ तक मुझे पता है काफी लोगों का asset allocation would have changed, और equity में asset allocation बढ़ गया होगा. This is a very, very good time to revise your asset allocation and bring it in line with your risk appetite. So I think so यहाँ पर हम pause ले सकते हैं, and we can open the session for questions, if any, from the audience.
Yes, thanks, Niranjan. Quite simple way you explained what is asset allocation and also how to rebalance. And I think 3 very important points that you highlighted: your goals, your risk-taking ability, and your time horizon. I think these 3 are the stepping stones for doing asset allocation and managing portfolio over a long period of time.
Right.
We have few questions also. कुछ सवाल हैं हमारे पास जो हमारे व्यूअर्स से भी आए हैं, so we'll take them up now. So the first question, I think you have already answered. How frequently should one review asset allocation?
Right.
If
So
you
as
can,
जैसे
yeah.
मैंने आपको बताया, आप टाइम पीरियड सेट कर सकते हैं. सो इफ यू आर बेसिकली अ लॉन्ग टर्म इन्वेस्टर, फॉर मोस्ट इन्वेस्टर्स साल में एक बार अपना एसेट एलोकेशन देखना काफी होगा, क्योंकि बहुत ज्यादा बार भी आपको एसेट एलोकेशन नहीं देखना चाहिए, बिकॉज वहां पे हमारे इमोशंस प्ले ज्यादा करते हैं. सो एवरी क्वार्टरली अगर आप आपका एसेट एलोकेशन देखेंगे तो एवरी क्वार्टर इक्विटी रिटर्न्स कुड बी वेरी डिफरेंट. एक क्वार्टर में वो हाई हो सकते हैं और आपने इक्विटी से निकाल के डेट में कर दिया, एंड यू नेवर नो नेक्स्ट क्वार्टर इक्विटी रिटर्न्स कुड बी लोअर. सो आई थिंक सो वंस इन अ ईयर, एंड ऑल्सो वंस इन अ ईयर ओनली व्हेन जब आपका एसेट एलोकेशन मे बी 10% से ज्यादा चेंज हुआ है. Otherwise, we should also keep in mind the taxation aspect.
Correct.
So in the name of asset allocation, हमको हमारा portfolio churn नहीं करना है हर बार, because that will lead to more taxation and reduce your overall return. Also, when we do this asset allocation more frequently, as I mentioned, you are bound to go wrong, because the more number of times you churn your portfolio, the more number of times you might make errors. So once in a year, only if your asset allocation 10% से ज्यादा हिल जाता है, and some important life situations, only these should be the trigger for asset allocation change.
We have another question, and I also wanted to
Yes.
ask you for the benefit of our viewers. The question says, Nifty is at 18,000. Should I stick to equity or go for balance advantage?
Mm-hmm.
So one way to look at balanced, the asset allocation is also funds like balanced advantage or multi-asset. So what role these funds can play in client portfolios?
ये क्वेश्चन काफी बार आता है, एंड काफी लोग पूछते हैं कि अगर मैंने बैलेंस एडवांटेज फंड में इन्वेस्ट कर दिया तो मेरा एसेट एलोकेशन हो गया क्या? आई वुड से द आंसर इज समवेयर बिटवीन. इट इज नॉट यस और नो. एसेट एलोकेशन दो तरीके के होते हैं. अभी हमने देखा कि एक एसेट एलोकेशन वो होता है जो आपके रिस्क एपिटाइट के हिसाब से आपका पोर्टफोलियो चेंज होता है. आपका गोल कब आने वाला है, रिस्क क्षमता आपकी कितनी है और इक्विटी आप कितना रख सकते हो. दूसरा एक तरीका है इक्विटी मार्केट की जो साइकिल्स है उसके हिसाब से आप एसेट एलोकेशन चेंज करें, विच इज ऑल्सो नोन एज टैक्टिकल एसेट एलोकेशन. तो पहला वाला है वो स्ट्रेटेजिक एसेट एलोकेशन है, बिकॉज इट इज मोर टू डू विथ योर रिस्क एपिटाइट, आपका गोल्स कब आने वाला है. और दूसरा है टैक्टिकल, मार्केट को देखते हुए. सो टैक्टिकल एलोकेशन में क्या होता है, उसका फायदा वो होता है कि जब मार्केट खराब चल रहा है और आपने इक्विटी एलोकेशन कम कर दिया तो आपका जो ओवरऑल पोर्टफोलियो की वोलेटिलिटी है वो कम हो जाती है. सो इट इज इंपॉर्टेंट टू कीप सम पोर्शन ऑफ योर पोर्टफोलियो, कीप डूइंग टैक्टिकल एलोकेशन बेस्ड ऑन मार्केट. बैलेंस एडवांटेज फंड टेक्स केयर ऑफ दैट पार्ट, जहां पर अगर इक्विटी मार्केट काफी हीटेड अप है और इक्विटी मार्केट गिर रहा है तो ऐसे ड्रॉडाउन्स में जब मार्केट गिर रहा है बैलेंस एडवांटेज फंड आपको थोड़ा प्रोटेक्ट करता है आपके पोर्टफोलियो में. So I would say in everyone's portfolio, some portion of their investments could be in a balanced advantage fund. It will help you do this tactical allocation automatically over a period of time, जिससे कि आपकी portfolio की overall जो volatility है वो कम हो जाती है. But balanced advantage fund on its own may not be sufficient, because balanced advantage fund in a very, very booming market, they could be a conservative fund, because wahan pe you may not be able to capture entire rally, and if you are young you want to capture that upside over a longer period of time. So maybe a 40-50% allocation to balanced advantage fund and rest into pure equity would do the trick. And today as जैसे आपने अभी का situation मुझे पूछा है, जैसे market is at a high, so is it right to do a balanced advantage fund? I think so. इसका आंसर आपके पोर्टफोलियो में छुपा हुआ है. अगर आज आपका पोर्टफोलियो इज वेरी हाई ऑन इक्विटी बट यू स्टिल वांट टू डू इक्विटी, देन मे बी इंक्रीमेंटली आपका जो पैसा है वो बैलेंस एडवांटेज फंड में जाना चाहिए, राइट? इफ यू आर अंडरवेट इक्विटी and you don't want to invest in equities, then you just stay away from equity. You don't book profits or do anything else. So ये आपके पोर्टफोलियो में छुपा हुआ आंसर है. देयर इज नो राइट और रॉन्ग आंसर्स टू दिस काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चन, आई वुड से.
Right. Thanks. So another question is, sir, I am investing in mutual fund for last 4 years and my investment has grown 2 times. Should I move out of equity now?
See, again, this is part of a tactical allocation question, and as humans, we are bound to go wrong on market, right? And ये same question पिछले साल भी हमने पूछा होगा, और उसके बाद भी markets are up almost 20-25%. It may continue to go up, you never know, and that is where asset allocation becomes very important. Again, इसका आंसर आपके पोर्टफोलियो में है. अगर आप अंडरवेट इक्विटी है तो आपको इक्विटी से बाहर निकलने की जरूरत नहीं है. If you are overweight on equity, maybe probably you can book profit and move to a fund like Balanced Advantage Fund, जहाँ पे even if market falls, your overall portfolio will stay protected to a certain extent from that fall. So if you are overweight on equity, maybe you can switch some money, or incremental money can be invested in a Balanced Advantage Fund. But if you are doing SIP, continue doing your SIP. SIP helps you even if market falls. In fact, it helps you more. So अगर आप SIP कर रहे हो तो you should just continue. Lump sum investments करना है तो you can invest in a Balanced Advantage Fund kind of thing. And if you are underweight equity, अगर आपके portfolio में आपका risk appetite ज़्यादा है, you are still maybe 30-40% in equity, there's no reason you should redeem, because once you redeem, there is another question which comes up is आप इस पैसे को reinvestment कहाँ करोगे, right? अगर आप आज पैसे निकालते हो equity से, will you invest in FD which gives you 5.5% return? Are you ready for that kind of lower returns? Are you very sure कि equity यहाँ से नीचे जाएगा, and then you are taking that call? So these are very difficult answers, questions to answer, and hence I think so going slow and knowing that we can go wrong if we redeem, I think so that will be a wiser thing to do today.
इसका आंसर आपके गोल्स और टाइम होराइजन पे भी डिपेंड करता है.
Absolutely, बहुत important है. Yes.
अगर गोल बहुत क्लोज आ गया है तो it makes sense to reduce your equity exposure.
Absolutely. So जैसे हमने देखा asset allocation, one very important aspect is your goal. अगर आपका गोल अगले साल आ रहा है, हमने देखा कि उसके 1 या 2 साल पहले ही आपको इक्विटी का एलोकेशन कम करना होगा, एंड इट इज इररिस्पेक्टिव एट विच लेवल इक्विटी मार्केट इज, राइट? अगर यहाँ इक्विटी मार्केट 15,000 भी होता निफ्टी, लेकिन अगर आपका गोल अगले साल है, यू कांट वेट थिंकिंग कि निफ्टी विल गो टू 18,000, राइट? इट मे गो टू 12,000 एज वेल. सो if your goals are near, you don't need to look at market, you need to look at asset allocation.
Another question that has come to us is, should I allocate money to gold and silver? Now silver is also available,
right,
for investors through a MA for an ETF route. So should we invest as part of asset allocation to gold and silver?
Right. See, gold and silver are asset class which basically provide you hedge against inflation. और दूसरा, जब रिस्क एसेट्स खराब करते हैं या इक्विटी खराब करता है, तो दिस काइंड ऑफ एसेट क्लास हेज यू अगेंस्ट दैट रिस्क, तो आपके पोर्टफोलियो में रिस्क कम करता है. सो फॉर दैट पर्पस आई थिंक सो सम पोर्शन, मे बी 10-15% काइंड ऑफ एलोकेशन कैन गो इनटू गोल्ड एंड मे बी सिल्वर. ETFs अभी आ रहे हैं, तो यू कैन इन्वेस्ट इन सिल्वर्स एज वेल. Just between gold and silver as an asset class is more volatile, so we should know about it. Usually over a longer period of time, silver and gold are known as precious metal, and they give you a benefit of in high inflation and when markets are doing bad. So some allocation definitely can be done.
We have one question which is not exactly related, which is asking what are balanced advantage funds. So very briefly, if you can just touch upon it.
Absolutely. So balanced advantage fund वो फंड होते हैं जहाँ पे इक्विटी एलोकेशन जो इसका होता है वो डायनामिकली मैनेज किया जाता है, और जब मार्केट अच्छा कर रहा है तो ये फंड्स आपको इक्विटी मार्केट में पार्टिसिपेट करने में मदद करते हैं, और जब मार्केट खराब कर रहा है तब आपकी जो डाउन साइड है वो कुछ हद तक प्रोटेक्ट होती है, और इसीलिए इसको बैलेंस्ड एडवांटेज फंड कहा जाता है. डायनामिकली इक्विटी एक्सपोजर मोस्ट फंड्स का 30 to 80% के बीच में शिफ्ट होते रहता है। उसका एम यही है कि लॉन्गर टर्म में आपको मार्केट के आसपास रिटर्न मिले बन सके और वोलेटिलिटी जो है वो काफी कम हो, और स्पेशली सिचुएशन लाइक मार्च 2020 जब मार्केट 20-30% नीचे था, ऐसे पीरियड में बैलेंस एडवांटेज फंड आपको कुछ डाउनसाइड प्रोटेक्शन देते हैं।
One last question. I think we talked about this SIP, STP, but how does it relate to asset allocation exactly is the question. How we can define it as an asset allocation strategy.
Right. So it is a very important question because आजकल हम जैसे retail investors mostly we invest only through SIPs, and so when you define your asset allocation, it is at two level. एक जो आपका ऑलरेडी पैसा मार्केट में या फिर एसेट क्लास में इन्वेस्ट किया गया है, वो एसेट एलोकेशन देखना कि उसमें इक्विटी कितना है, डेट कितना है, और दूसरा जब आप इंक्रीमेंटल इन्वेस्टमेंट्स कर रहे हैं उसकी भी एसेट एलोकेशन इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाती है। अगर आपका एसेट एलोकेशन 50-50% होना चाहिए और इंक्रीमेंटली आप 100% इक्विटी में ही पैसा लगा रहे हो, तो आपका डेफिनेटली एसेट एलोकेशन टिल्ट हो जाएगा टुवर्ड्स इक्विटी। So when you are doing SIPs and if you want to go slow on equity, maybe you can start SIPs in a mix of hybrid fund, balance advantage fund, and then pure equity fund. Debt funds में भी SIP कर सकते हैं, GSEC funds में आप SIP कर सकते हैं, या फिर most salaried employees के लिए भी already invest in EPF and PPF in some cases. वो भी आपका एक monthly SIP ही होता है. So you should consider, जैसे मैंने आपको बताया, आपका total investments किस एसेट क्लास में हो रहा है वो आपको देखना चाहिए। सो यस, द आंसर इज एसआईपी करते वक्त भी आपको एसेट एलोकेशन देखना जरूरी है। अगर आपको पूरा इक्विटी में डालना है बिकॉज यू आर अंडरवेट इक्विटी, आप पूरा इक्विटी में डाल सकते हैं। अगर आप ऑलरेडी इक्विटी में काफी एक्सपोजर है तो आपका जो एसआईपीज है यू कैन ऑल्सो टिल्ट इट टुवर्ड्स हाइब्रिड फंड्स एंड इक्विटी फंड्स सो दैट इंक्रीमेंटल पैसा भी आपका आपके एसेट एलोकेशन के हिसाब से ही लगे।
Another aspect which is now available is international funds also. That can also be a part of your asset allocation strategy.
Absolutely.
While it is equity in nature, but it also gives you country hedge.
Yes, it is very important because usually हमने देखा गया है कि कोई भी equity investor, whether it is from US और India, एक home bias होता है। हम हमेशा हमारे खुद के कंट्री के इक्विटी मार्केट में पैसा लगाते हैं और एसेट क्लास में लगाते हैं। डाइवर्सिफिकेशन की वजह से डेफिनेटली आपका रिस्क कम हो जाता है, और इंडिया में स्पेसिफिकली जो इंडिया से बाहर इन्वेस्टमेंट करते हैं, डॉलर एसेट्स हम जिसको बोलते हैं, हम क्योंकि हमारी इंडियन करेंसी जो है वो डिप्रिशिएट होती है एवरी ईयर अगेंस्ट यूएस डॉलर, इसका भी हमको फायदा मिलता है। सो ओवर लास्ट 40 years INR, Indian currency has depreciated on an average by 3.5-4% every year. So ये रिटर्न ऑटोमेटिकली आपके रिटर्न में ऐड हो जाता है जब आप इंटरनेशनल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, विच इज डन बेसिकली इन यूएस डॉलर्स और सम अदर करेंसी। सो डाइवर्सिफिकेशन बेनिफिट बिकॉज ऑफ लो कोरिलेशन विद इंडियन मार्केट्स, और दूसरा hedge against currency depreciation, और इनफैक्ट एडिशनल एडवांटेज ड्यू टू आवर डेप्रिशिएटिंग करेंसी। ये दो बेनिफिट, और तीसरा एक इंपॉर्टेंट बेनिफिट है कि काफी ऐसे कंपनीज है जो इंडिया में नहीं है। सो यू डोंट हैव कंपनीज लाइक गूगल, you don't have companies like Facebook or Amazon or Tesla in India. ये सब जो नए एज की कंपनीज हैं, these are not the only companies, there are many more companies which are coming up with similar strategies or similar business models which are not there in India. ऐसे कंपनीज में भी अगर आपको एक्सेस चाहिए तो इंडिया के बाहर इन्वेस्ट करना जरूरी हो गया है।
I think, Niranjan, we are close to the end of our session. So
yes,
thanks a lot for coming today, sharing your views. And I think you explained, बहुत ही simple terms में आपने explain कर दिया what is asset allocation, how to do that. And I'm sure all our viewers will benefit from it. So thanks a lot for coming today.
Thanks, Gaurav, and thanks you for, thanks for all the viewers to, for attending this session. I enjoyed it a lot, and thank you so much.
So I would also like to thank all our viewers who have joined today for this session, and please download the Moneyfy app from Play Store and App Store, and also do subscribe to our YouTube channel for more such insightful discussions. Thanks, Niranjan. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you.